If one were only to see this document related to Private Harley Stride's death, then one could assume he died tragically from pulmonary tuberculosis at his father's home in Iona Station, Ontario, during his service in the First World War. This was not uncommon at the time, given the 1918 influenza pandemic. But if one just goes a little beneath the surface on Stride's story, it becomes clear quickly that this is far more complicated. I first discovered Stride's story when working through General Arthur Currie's papers for research related to my dissertation. I have been interested in Canadian conscription ever since I learned my great-grandfather was a Canadian conscript during the First World War. Due to this interest in Canadian conscription, I often tend to pick out these stories when examining primary documents. Going through Currie's papers, I saw this January 1920 memorandum from the Militia Council. Stride's regimental number, 3140190, caught my eye as I recognized the first 3 digits as one of the series of numbers given to conscripts. The Militia Council was seeking Currie's approval for a reimbursement of $96 to David Stride, Harley's father, for his son's funeral expenses. The memorandum details Harley Stride's story. Stride was a defaulter, the term used for individuals who did not report when required for military service. He was working as a machinist at the time of his attestation. Stride was eventually apprehended by the Dominion Police, who forced him to report to the 1st Depot Battalion, Western Ontario Regiment in London, Ontario, on October 2, 1918. Upon his arrival, he was given a medical examination, where he was found to be medically unfit for service and given indefinite leave 2 days later. He returned home to Iona Station and died on October 12, 1918 at age 23, officially from pulmonary tuberculosis. Due to Stride's father asking for money for his funeral, I wonder what circumstances led to Stride's death. Was Stride deathly ill before his arrest, or was it his few days in service that led to his death? At this point, I decided to dig a little deeper about Stride and his service. I found an article in the Globe detailing his story, and that a coroner's jury was convened to determine the cause of death. The jury found, and I quote, "The death was due to tuberculosis, which was aggravated by the usage received by the deceased at the hands of the military authorities." End quote. His parents told the jury that Stride had been forced to do fatigue duty, including cleaning the latrines, and was forced to sleep in wet clothes on damp ground. The Crown Attorney produced a duty roster that showed Stride was not forced to do any duty or parades and was given adequate blankets. The Canadian militia set up their own inquiry and found that they were not at fault. They concluded that Stride died from bronchopneumonia and, quote, that his final acute illness developed after he had been given indefinite leave. It is noted in Stride's service file that he refused to sign his will. His conduct and character was also noted to be good. In question Stride's health, as it seems he did not think he was going to die any time in the near future, and his service record indicates no problems. In the memorandum sent to Currie, the Judge Advocate General found the government was not legally required to pay for Stride's funeral expenses, but recommended doing so due to the amount of public interest that his death had attracted. Currie and the Militia Council approved of reimbursing Stride's father the $96 almost a year and a half after his death. While giving the payment for the funeral does not imply guilt on the militia's part, it does speak of their want to make the issue go away after the war, a reason given to Currie for his approval for the payment. Unfortunately for the Stride family, Harley's death was not the only one they suffered in October 1918. His brother Morley died from influenza on October 23, 1918 at the London Military Hospital. He was wounded at Passchendaele as a member of the 8th Trench Mortar Battery and was sent to Canada for convalescence. They are buried together and now lay with their family just outside Iona Station, Ontario. I visited their family plot where I was able to finally pay my respects to both Harley and Morley. One final thought. Stride's death raises questions about how conscripts were treated during their training, a topic rarely discussed in the Canadian history of the First World War.